Hello and welcome to Come Sit Down, Let's Talk. I am Master Life Coach Mechelle, Canady, Chief Curator of Embrace You Training Solutions, also known as Miss Get You Together, honey. And we are here on set with the GO Janay White, and we are on site at one of her Airbnbs. We are super excited to be able to pull away, come and have a real conversation for real. How are you today, Janay?
I can't complain. I'm doing amazing. I'm so excited to be here sitting next to you.
Listen, me and Janay have such a special relationship that we kind of vibe together. So we're going to let y'all in on some of our conversation, the way we talk. Y'all ready? Okay, let's go. So, Janay, are you from Jacksonville? Tell us about who you are and where you come from.
That's a good question. Not a lot of people ask me that, so I love when I can elaborate on, who I am. I am born and raised right here in Jacksonville. My mother was born and raised here, as well as my grandmother, all of my aunts, uncles, in my intermediate family. We're all born and raised right here. So this is where I plan on continuing to raise my children, continuing to flourish and thrive.
So what high school did you go to?
I went to Stanton College Preparatory School.
What? Brainiac. Like, only those smart people go to Stanton. So, when you were in school, like, what type of child was Janay?
I was always really goofy. I used to love math. Math was my favorite subject. I've always been a writer at heart. When I used to take standardized tests, I would score the highest scores on my test in the writing subject and the math subjects. So I've always loved learning. I was raised by my aunt, and she was a stickler on reading. And she used to take me to the thrift store. Like every weekend, I had to pick out books, go home, read them. She was an usher in church, so I was always in church. I got baptized at the age of 9. So I feel like, I'm glad that I came up with that background. A background of religion, a background of education, a background of, just enough to thrive, enough roots to say that, okay, I have a foundation. How do I make it work for me?
Okay. So when you were in school, as you were graduating, what was your dream? What did you dream of becoming?
You want to be honest? At first I set out to be a pharmacist. I took Latin in high school, right? So I didn't take Spanish like everybody else. I did have a couple of friends that took French, but I was like the only one of my friends who took Latin, because I knew that in order to be a pharmacist, all prescriptions initially come in Latin, and they have to translate the prescription. So I was like, I'm going to have a head start, and I'm going to take Latin in high school. So by the time that I go to college to get my doctorate in pharmacy, I'll be ahead of the game.
Okay. So at what point did that dream change for you?
It changed when I got pregnant at 18 years old. So no, at first it changed before that. So, I got to my teenage years, I got my car. My aunt had bought my first car. I started like breaking curfew, just going through growing pains. I was very sheltered as a child. So when I started driving, it was like, oh, I got some freedom. Like I can do this, I can do that. So I ended up saying, well, okay, I don't want to go to college anymore. And I had enlisted into the Navy. So I was going to go into the Navy, and I had got a sign-in bonus to be an air traffic control. So that's what I was going to do, but I ended up getting pregnant with my son, who's now 16 years old. But I got pregnant with him, and because I got pregnant with him before I had finished boot camp, I wasn't able to finish my tenure in the Navy. So they basically sent me back home.
Wow. So you got kicked out?
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes. And it was devastating. It was devastating to my family. Like I had let them down. They had, like I said, they had prepped me my entire life to be successful and given me the tools to do that. And, I got pregnant as a teenager, straight out of high school. So I did, at the time, I let a lot of people down. Of course, in hindsight, I'm so happy to have my son. Everybody's so happy that he's here. But being 18, that's completely life-changing to say that this person's future is so promising. And now they're sitting home preparing to have a baby.
Well, I will say similar situation. I decided to take a gap year. I too was a brainiac in school.
Yes.
Won all awards.
Yes.
Future very promising, and I decided to take a gap year And in that gap year, I got pregnant and married.
Wow.
So that altered the course of my life. My dream was to be an attorney. I was going to go to
Wow.
FSU. Listen, I had all the plans.
I could see that too. You
Yeah.
gonna pledge and stuff. I could see that.
Listen.
You give me Delta or AKA.
AKA, that's
Yeah.
what everybody was like. Oh, you look like an AKA.
Yes.
I don't know what that means, but that's all I've
Bougie.
always got.
Bougie.
That might be it, because I embrace the bouginess. But so I ended up getting married, and rapidly having babies. Like, I think by the time I was 25, I had 3 kids.
Yes.
So, yeah, it altered the course of my life. So I can identify with everyone looking for your life to be one way.
Yes.
And because of decisions we made, life happens.
Yes.
But look at you now.
Yes. God is good.
He is, because sometimes if it wasn't for those detours in our lives, we wouldn't be where we currently
Wouldn't
are.
be at all.
Like, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yes, I probably would have never met you had I been a military wife, you know? So
Come on. So, Janay, tell me about growing up. Like, what neighborhood did you grow up in?
So I did grow up in the projects. We stayed in Jefferson Street apartments. I don't know if y'all are familiar. I'm from Jacksonville. So, you know, it's close to Shands.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that area is being revitalized now. But back then, you know, I was in one of the poorest zip codes, if not the poorest zip code in Jacksonville, Florida. But looking back at my childhood, I just had so much love. And it's funny, I never knew I was poor. I never knew I was considered lower class. I just was raised with a lot of love, and my family was so close-knit. And I'm not even gonna lie, like, to this day, I miss it. Like, it's certain things about poverty that I miss, because we didn't have a lot, but we were so close. Like, I remember, you know, we had like a little 2-bedroom apartment, but it was me, my mom, my grandma, my uncle. I think my aunt lived across the hall from her, but we were always together, like, every single day. And I remember, like, my bedtime, I would go get in the bed with my grandma, and that would just be, like, the best time. Like, I was spoiled by everybody, and I remember my uncles used to come pick me up from the bus stop. So, like, I don't have any sad, terrible memories, you know, from the projects. It was like, I was raised around love. That was all that mattered to me. And because I had so much of it, like I said, I didn't know I was poor until I got to high school.
So what was that discovery like, to discover that you were poor?
It hurt because so I went to Stanton College Preparatory School, which at the time I went there from 2001 until 2005. We were the #1 school in the nation.
Wow.
So in the entire United States, academic-wise, we were the elite of the elite. And when you go to a school like that, like, literally every doctor in the city, their child went there. You know, educators, their children went there. We had sports agents, their children went there. Kids whose parents played for the Jaguars went there. News anchors' kids went there, right? So just people who came from money. Like, I remember it was so odd to me because I didn't know any doctors. And I remember I tried out for the basketball team, and they were talking about, you know, we had to get our physical. And so the girl next to me was like, oh, my dad gave me my physical this morning over breakfast. And I was like, well, how did he do that? Oh. And she was like, oh, my dad's a doctor. Like, your parents aren't doctors? No. And then it was one girl, she had braces. Like, literally one day she would come to school with braces on. The next day they would be off. Then the next day they would be on. I'm like, what's going on with you? Like, does your parents take you to the dentist, like, every day? And she was like, no, my dad is the orthodontist. So he, like, I go to his office after school. He may put braces on me just playing. He may take them off. Like, what? So, it was very, very, it was a wake-up call, like, wow. But I thank God for it because it made me want more. And I remember going there. It was so competitive. Like, kids would literally cry their eyes out if they got an A-. And I'm like, we're at the best school in the nation. Like, right. I'm happy to take a B home to my parents. Like, they know that I'm in a very challenging environment, but seeing how they didn't settle for less and how success was mandatory and how straight A's was, you better come home with that. You better go to school and be a doctor. Our entire family is doctors. Like, I had 16-year-old kids, like, oh, we got a piece of land for Christmas. So it was like, wow. And it's like normal for them. So it really opened my eyes to, like I said, wanting more and looking outside of the bubble that I was in. And it was, like I said, it was a hurtful thing because it was like, no, Mom, I'm not grateful for this anymore. Like, I want, like, why do we live in the ghetto? Like, my friends have maids and they have housekeepers and they have acres of land. Like, I go over to my friend's house for the weekend and it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go home. Like, you have a basketball court at your house. So it was that kind of wake up call for me, I think, was the first taste of, wow, I really want to have financial freedom.
Wow. So when it came to you making the decision to be able to prepare yourself for being a pharmacist, did you have like role models? Did anybody play a role in that? How did you come to that conclusion that you wanted to be a pharmacist?
So number one, I used to go to this after school program, and like I was always involved in sports. And back then, I was really good in basketball. I used to be all around athlete. So I used to play tennis. I was in karate. I was in flag football. I played softball, but basketball was like my number one thing. And one year I was on this basketball team, and it was like, okay, well, everybody who's on the basketball team, we're going to allow you to intern at Baptist Medical Center for the summer, and we're going to give you a stipend. So we had to pick what department we wanted to go in. And I'll never forget when we got to tour the hospital, I got to talk to a pharmacist, and the pharmacist was like, oh, I made $80,000 a year out of college. And I'm like, what? And mind you, this is back in 2000, 1999, where $80,000 back then was probably like $250,000 a year now.
Right.
So I'm like, wow, you make that kind of money? And he was like, and yeah, I don't care. Like, if they fire me, I can go and get another job in the next 5 minutes because we're so needed. Like, the supply is low and the demand is high for pharmacists. So I'm like, wow, job security. Like, I'm gonna make crazy money. So that was kind of what drove it. And I'm like, and it's something exciting. Like, I'm going to be helping people. I'm going to be, administering prescriptions and things like that. So I ended up, my very first job, I was a pharmacy technician at Baptist Medical Center downtown. And I used to work in the inpatient pharmacy, and I worked there for the summer. And it was only supposed to be a summer job. And then, I go back to school. And they liked me so much, they offered me a real job at the age of 16 years old. So I was 16 years old back, in 2000, making $10 an hour.
Right.
And so my parents was like, wow, like, you make more than some adults that I know back then. So that was like my first taste of, wow, if you work hard and people notice that it's something different about you, like, they'll trust you with things they normally wouldn't trust other people with. And it also taught me, like, about blessings. And, having, putting in the work and just following your heart.
So, in the changes that were taking place in your life, did you have a mentor, someone in your family who kind of helped to guide you and to give you encouraging words? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so my aunt was my biggest mentor. So, to go back and rewind a little bit, my mom got pregnant with me when she was 13 years old. She had me at 14. She was the baby of the family out of all my grandmother's children. And my aunt, who, my closest aunt who raised me, she was the oldest. Mm-hmm. So my mom was literally like her daughter, of course. So when my mom had me, because she was a kid herself, my grandma and my aunt took over and was like, we're going to raise this baby because you're too young. Like, you're a baby yourself. So it just created a bond like no other. Like, my grandmother, she did pass away last year, but between her and my aunt, they just always believed in me. And they always, taught me I can basically do whatever I wanted to do, whatever I set out to do. And they would, in their own way, help me do that. Mm-hmm. So those are like my mentors and my role models. My grandmother, she always impressed me because she had her own business. When she was, when I was a baby, she started out working at a child care center. And then I think by the time I was like maybe 2 or 3, she ended up owning her own daycare, back in the 90s. And you know, like I said, I didn't even know I was poor. So, so, you know, she made it look good. Like, I never went without. And then my aunt, she was a social worker for so many years, but she was always really smart. I think, like, she got voted most likely to succeed or something in her high school class. But she was a social worker, but then she also, like, started her own businesses while she was a social worker. And then I remember one year I was living with her. She wanted to buy a brand new house and get it built from the ground up. And she started working like a second job at Hubbard House. So she would always help people. And then like she used to bring kids home from Hubbard House and things like that. So I'm like, wow, you know, she just has a really good heart and a heart for helping people. And then she started like having her own janitorial company. Then one year she started DJing and she had her own entertainment company. And now, even right now today, she's retired from corporate America, but she owns 2 daycares right now today. So she just, even now, like she'll send me articles and things about loans and funding, and she'll say, well, Janay, you know, you do it. Like, I'm old now, so I don't have the energy that you have, but she's definitely a mentor. Through playing basketball and just, you know, going to schools like Stanton. I used to like win first place in the spelling bee and things like that. I always made like straight A's in elementary school and middle school. So I would be like on the honor rolls for the Jaguars. And then one year I got inducted into the I got like a Junior Achievers Awards from the city. So just getting awarded with things like that, it allowed me to connect with different people. Well, believe it or not, the chief nursing officer at Baptist Medical Center became my mentor. And so she's still in my life today. Her name is Diane Rains. Like anybody who ever worked for Baptist, especially any nurses, they all know who she is. So she helped me a lot as well because she just was so accomplished. And, you know, she brought that other side to me about finances and success and, you know, working your way up the ladder, especially as a woman.
So you had a lot of images of being a serial entrepreneur, being someone who owns your own business. So that kind of explains how entrepreneurship is a part of your fiber because your grandmother was an entrepreneur, your auntie was an entrepreneur, so you watched it. So when it comes to the relationship with you and your mom, how is that relationship?
So it's really weird, actually. So I call my aunt my mom because, of course, she raised me. And my mom, she had me so young, so it's more like we're sisters kind of thing. But we don't have the closest relationship. Like, my mother is somebody who I feel like I love more from a distance. So, you know, like, we don't go shopping or we don't hang out. I kind of do that kind of stuff with my aunt more so than my mom. But I have, like, other brothers and sisters, so she's closer to them.
With Embrace You, I found a career.
At Embrace You, I found a family.
At Embrace You, I found me.
Are you the strong friend who's always giving advice? Are you the one always mentoring and coaching? Have you thought about being a certified life coach? Because here at Embrace You, we have room for you in our family.
I am Embrace You.
I am Embrace You.
I am Embrace You.
And you can be Embrace You. How many brothers and sisters do you have?
By my mother, I have 1 brother and 2 sisters. Okay. And I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest?
Yes.
Wow. So how is the relationship with you and your siblings?
It's different now. So, like, they think it's cool because we're so far apart. Like, like my sisters, I'm 8 years older than one. I'm 11 years older than the other. So they think it's cool. Like, oh, my sister's on a billboard, you know, and my sister, you know, is like a public figure. But one of my sisters, we text a lot, and, you know, it's cool that, like, she believes in me, and, you know, she'll say, hey, you know, I want to do this. Can you help me? So I think that's really cool. My other sister, she's, like, still really young, so she's, like, not interested in all this stuff. Like, hey, I just want to go to work, get a check, have fun. My brother, me and him, we grew up at first really close, but of course, because I wasn't raised by my mom and he was, so we don't really talk every day, but, you know, we love each other.
That's cool. There's a big gap in between me and my siblings. Like, me and my closest sibling, we're 9 years apart. So by the time I was 9, I was the only child in the house. So even though I have 14 half siblings, I'm the only child my mom and dad had, and I was raised by myself. So my siblings are more of like aunties ages, and their kids are like my ages. So I grew up with my nieces and
So
nephews.
those like your brothers and
those
sisters.
like my siblings. So when it comes to who I prefer to hang out with, like I don't want to hang out with my siblings. But my nieces and nephews, like we down like 4 flat tires because that they were more of my speed, they were more of my age. So I definitely can identify with having a non-traditional relationship with your siblings, but it not being bad. Because sometimes people think, because it doesn't look like what theirs may look like, that something's wrong with it. That doesn't mean something's wrong with it. My story's just different.
Yes.
So Janay, if you could share anything about you with the viewers, what would that be?
My view, what I would like to share about myself with the viewers is that I have come a long way, you know, and I feel like I'm not where I'm supposed to be, but I'm not where I used to be either. And I'm just excited to see where the journey continues to take me. In no means that I ever prayed to be here or think that I would be here, but I'm very thankful that I am. And I feel like I'm the best person for the job. I'm the best person for the blessings and the accolades. And I just hope that everybody stays with me and continues to watch the successes, the failures, the mistakes, you know, the triumphs. And, you know, we just all do it together.
So tell me one success that you are extremely proud of. I know they all mean a lot, but what do you feel that is the greatest accomplishment?
The greatest accomplishment to me is my credit company, because it's something that I did not ever try to start. And to see the way that we help people and the way that we're able to change people's lives. And even when I think about the story of how my team was built and how every employee, like I never did an interview. They were all like strategically placed in my life and asked to, you know, be an employee. And I was just like, okay, sure. And, you know, now they're some of the most loyal people that I've ever met in my life, and how we grow together, cry together, laugh together. So that is something that I'm most, you know, proud of. And that I feel like, wow, I can't believe like this happened. Like, you know, this is what I do for a living. This was my calling, because like I said, it was something that I never once in school, out of the entire 12 years I went to school, say, oh yeah, I'm going to grow up and be this credit lady. So,
which is a perfect segue, because I wanted to take some time during this segment to give people some insight who Janay is.
yes.
So in our second episode, we're going to talk about who the GOAT is.
Okay.
So you got to come back again next week so you can find out more information about Janay the GOAT White. I want to thank you for watching another episode of Come Sit Down, Let's Talk. And we will see you again next week. Same time, same back channel.
With Embrace You, I found a career.
At Embrace You, I found a family.
At Embrace You, I found me.
Are you the strong friend who's always giving advice? Are you the one always mentoring and coaching? Have you thought about being a certified life coach? Because here at Embrace You, we have room for you in our family.
I am Embrace You.
I am Embrace You.
I am Embrace You.
And you can be Embrace You.